Good evening. I would like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order. The next regular Board of Education meeting is on Tuesday, September 24th at 7:30 p.m. in the board meeting room. Sorry. To start off, I just want to say that I hope this third week of the school year finds everyone settling in well. Given that many of us are still readjusting to homework planning, bus schedules, practice timing, and needing to get instruments for our elementary school music program, I'm pleased to report that we have a fairly brief agenda this evening. Plus, there's a rumor there was a debate. Tonight we'll hear about a new proposal for a trip to Greece, college placement results, a report on this summer's extended school year. As board members are all aware, we're talking about our strategic plan this evening, but we'll hold discussion of Goal 1 teaching and learning for our next meeting on September 24th. We'll be discussing the rest of the strategic plan, but not that goal. We have identified as a board goal for our organization, meaning the 9 of us, better use of metrics and information to inform our decision-making. Alan and his team are looking more closely at the Goal 1 teaching and learning goal to determine what types of data will be most meaningful. At that time, they're also going to spend some time with us on how to use the data. These data days, we already have more data than we know what to do with, and it feels like we just keep collecting more. Isolating which data to use and identifying how to use it is a critical step in this process. It's critical for discernment, but it's also critical because as we all know, our students and our children are not just pieces of the various data that describe their lives. They're not their test scores or where they go to college, if they go to college. We intend at this table to talk meaningfully about data, but also to celebrate a variety of outcomes for our children and a variety of means to get there. Thank you all for your patience as we postpone that particular discussion to our next meeting. Speaking of strategic goals, this afternoon I had an opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting for the video wall. We thank the Darien Foundation for their generous gift. We thank Alan and the high school for hosting us, and Colleen Thompson and Jeff DeMeo for their compelling demonstration of several of the ways our students and teachers will be able to interact with the video wall, including music in front of it while something is playing in the background, atmospheric effects that will be great during theater presentations, or that's not the right word, Julie. Theater what?
Productions.
Productions, thank you. Etc. We intend at this district to be at the technological forefront, and we are grateful to the foundation for this opportunity to better meet our strategic STEAM and STEM goals in support of all of our students and all of their variety of interests. We're grateful to the community for their investment in this opportunity. One of the last things we'll be talking about is the master agenda, and I want to pose to the board something to think about, whether it's for this master agenda discussion or a future one. One of the things that I was thinking about as I watched that, again, compelling presentation of the video wall, and poor Ellen had to listen to me talk about it, is that I think that one of the things I'd love to see us do at this board table is make those connections for ourselves. So last year we passed a class of art, digital design that also included some pretty fancy technology that the students could use to create those designs. One of the things that Colleen demonstrated was what it would look like on the video wall if some of that art were presented in large format. So I think we have a great opportunity to talk about how some of the various initiatives that we put together actually interact with one another and enhance the education of our students. So as we look at the master agenda this evening and into the future, I ask that we all contemplate when and how we can better demonstrate that connectivity. It is so exciting and truly should be celebrated. With that, I will move on to public comment, and thank you all for being here this evening.
Good evening. If anybody in person would like to participate in public comment, please come up to the podium and wait for the chair to recognize you. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to comment. Please note the time with the chair. If anybody, sorry.
It's not directly, and I still ask the question. Yep. You're certainly welcome to come up and speak. We don't typically answer questions, but I could probably tell you who to speak to. Okay. but if you would just state your name and address and then
Sure.
give it a shot.
So my name is Aurora Mayer. I live at One Linkport, Darien.
Yes.
So my question is actually it concerned me for like 2 years. So finally I decided to come here to ask, but if you could tell me who to ask. So this is about the cafeteria program we use, right? My school bucks online payment system. So I'm a financial advisor. Well, I work in finance and my firm is a registered financial advisor, but I run the hedge fund. But so since I'm in finance, so I noticed the fee we have to pay to do the online payment is very high. It's more than 2% because they restrict how much you can put in each time. And then they have like fixed number of fees. So in percentage, I did the calculations more than 2%. So I'm sure a lot of you here have financial advisor. I mean, regular financial advisor in general charge like 1% fees, right? So like more than 2% fee is very high. So I just wonder how this program was chosen, and then why we have to pay.
So Rich Brutal down there at the end is your point of contact for that. It's just his first name, last name at darienps.org. Or you can also go on the website and under departments, he runs finance. And his email will be there, and he certainly would be able to help you with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment. I appreciate your time.
If anybody else in person would like to participate, please approach the podium. If anybody online would like to participate, please use the raised hand icon. And note that you will have to state your name, address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to speak. We have no raised hands at this time.
Okay. With that, I'll move on to the superintendent's report. Alan?
Yes, good evening, everybody, and thank you for your participation. Our students and our staff are transitioning back into school. This is the first full week, but things are going well. Extracurricular activities are going to be getting up and running pretty soon. I would encourage students to participate. There's no greater way to get engaged and to engage yourself with a club or activity, athletics, sports, arts, or otherwise. And particularly if you're a freshman, right? We did have the freshman orientation. Certainly being successful in a freshman year is an indicator of whether you're going to be successful throughout your high school career. So I'd encourage all freshmen to look for something to participate in. Just a wee update on the cell phone policy. It has been going pretty well, and I think it's been pretty well received. We have had 16 cases of iPhones or a smartwatch, 15 iPhones and 1 smartwatch confiscated at the middle school, and parents have had to come in to pick those up. I've had a couple of parents who are concerned about having to come to pick it up. With that being said, it's been well received. Of those 13, 8 of them were prior to school starting, with primarily the kids having them in the gymnasium. So the transition is going well. The meetings that we had with the parents, particularly at the middle school, we leaned into this and asked for their support and the community support in dialogue with the kids around the dinner table and so on and so forth. So I would say so far so good. Teachers largely for the most part are in support of it. And for now it's going well. I think the thing will be, can we continue the momentum and keep that going? Elementary school, there's maybe one student per building at the most that we've had to confiscate a smartwatch or otherwise. So far so good, and appreciate the board support on that, our administration support on it, and particularly our community, our teachers, but also I just think it needs to be a community-wide effort, and I appreciate everybody's support as we move through this process. We have had one planning meeting for the high school, and that planning meeting was with administration and our coordinator of technology, myself, just to develop in a process of how we might tackle this. And so we'll be moving forward on a regular basis at the secondary school level. Again, thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned the video wall. Once again, thank you to the members of the Darien Foundation. Tomorrow, 9/11, we have a 9/11 the town ceremony is at 8:25 tomorrow behind the middle school. our young people from the middle school will be singing the national anthem there. So that is open to the public. So if you're interested, have your time, or otherwise, you're certainly encouraged to participate in that townwide event. Next week, we talked about metrics. Next week, by the end of next week, we will have communicated with all parents, particularly at the elementary, middle school level, on the SBAC results. So they will get that through, instead of going regular mail, we'll be emailing all the results and reports to the parents. That will also include the science scores. There is an update that all the general staff are full. We still have a few special education positions, but Marge will talk about that a wee bit later. We do have our open houses on September 12th. That is Thursday night. And that will also have an opportunity at the HHR buildings, Henley Homes and Royal, members of the building committee, the construction firm, and also the architects will be on hand if people have any questions that they would like to address at that time. And we know that the open house will be well attended. It's a great opportunity just to right out the door to connect with your teachers. Elementary conferences, just to remember, will be held on October 22nd through the 25th. We did send out today some information on the pilot for the reading program, just to share with the members of parents where those were actually happening, in which classes and which grade levels. And that went out to from all elementary schools.
Will you send a copy of that to the board so we can see
Sure.
it, please?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Student representative reports. Welcome back, Brenna. We're happy to have you.
Oh my gosh, thank you everyone and welcome back to our DHS and DPS community. It's been such a sigh of relief this past 8-day cycle. We had our first full rotation. Huge hats off to everyone on the master scheduling team for making sure that everything has run and will run so smoothly. And everything is winding up here at DHS after we've all had a hopefully restful and relaxing and rejuvenating summer. We want to give a special shout out to our incoming freshmen as they transition into this really magical time in their lives. And we are really doing all that we can as a community to ensure that. Also, some recognition to our senior class. We are beginning our guidance meetings and starting that college application process for students who wish to attend, which can be daunting at times, but we really want to make sure that as a community, we're promoting balance and rest and relaxation, especially as the year is winding up. And fall sports are in full swing. We have our first official football game on Friday night. And for our music and art department, we have our first showcase in about 2 weeks. There's also some whispers that we are as a community trying to form a new homecoming or HOCO. And more updates on that to be determined, so stay tuned.
Thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes. With that, may I have a motion?
Can I just add one thing on
Yes,
that?
certainly.
Thank you to Eagle Eyes Robin over here. She noted that the vote tally of the contract vote was incorrect. I said it was 600. It was actually 620 with Brown and Grambling voting against. So I have adjusted it. I will send it to Cast to post.
Okay, so I will have a motion to approve the following minutes of the regular meeting held on August 27th, 2024 as amended. Sarah moves. John seconds. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Yes, so.
Oh, yes.
And you're yes. Thank you, Dave. You got that, Sarah?
So, yes.
Oh, Greg's
Greg
here.
too? Thank you, Greg. Okay. Board committee reports. We haven't had many of those. Sarah.
Our curriculum committee meeting had to be rescheduled, or we actually canceled September because of conflict of schedules of everybody, but we will meet again in October.
Okay. Ditto communication.
Same for communications, yes.
Yes. HHR, Alan mentioned, I think that we'll be at all of the parents' nights for the 3 schools under construction, but certainly we're very pleased to announce, and certainly not that it's a surprise, that all of our students got into the schools. They are under construction, but they are welcoming to students. The safety things that are in place are working well. And my co-chair and Chris Price and I had a chance to tour the buildings on Friday to take a look at traffic patterns, to take a look at the impact of the school day. And we were very pleased to see what we saw. We continue to be grateful to the teachers and students and families who are bearing with us as we go through construction, but we certainly are doing our best, and the construction team is doing their best to minimize the impact to students. We will take a look at all of those buildings as part of our building tour. We'll add that to the agenda because I think it would be nice for everybody to go and see what's happening, and we might as well all do it together in December when we do the building tour. Okay. Presentations, discussions, and possible action. Presentation and possible approval of the international trip for the 2024-2025 school year. Dr. Fadigan and Mr. Cabrera, welcome to your new role. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present on this. I'm here with Ellen Rubery, who is the teacher leader on this trip proposal. The trip is proposed for Athens, Margarita in Greece. I won't go through all of the points of the itinerary. I don't want to make anyone too jealous, but the kids will arrive in Athens and they will tour some of the most historic places on the planet, the Temple of Athena, the Acropolis. Then they shift to some island touring, which will be very nice. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. They will visit some of the most historic archaeological sites of the Bronze Age. These are sites that are over 4,000 years old, and then return day 7 to the United States. The travel is planned for February break, so 7 days, total cost of $3,639. It's with EF Tours, who I know the board is pretty familiar with. Curricular connections for this trip are very strong. We have, of course, our Western civilization course begins with ancient Greece, and then, of course, the birthplace of democracy, law and government, AP European history, AP human geography. These courses all have curricular connections with TRIP. Students have a great opportunity with this for enrichment. It would be open to all DHS students, and we think it could be a great opportunity. In terms of what's included in the cost, airfare, transportation within the country, the tour director that's with the group, 24-hour travel support, emergency support, entrance fees, hotels. What's not included are the extras that students might spend on their own, transportation to the airport here, and then the cost of chaperones and any additional travel insurance or the option for college credit that EF offers.
Okay. Great.
Any questions about any of that?
All right. With our thanks to the staff for continuing to come up with wonderful ways to expand our curricular horizons outside of this borders of Darien. Sarah?
A couple questions. Thank you, Dennis, for bringing this forward. I love this. Do you have identified teachers already that are ready to go for this?
Yes.
Okay. And are you planning on bringing another one back for the summer or spring break, or is this the one? Are you planning on others?
For the history department, this is the one.
Okay.
Yeah, I know my colleagues in world language will probably bring forward a trip.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? Katie?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment how nice it is to see a trip that is open to all students at DHS and provides that opportunity also for upper and lower classmen to mingle. So I think that's a really nice feature of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to add my appreciation to Ellen and yourself for organizing the trip. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to expand. No greater way you're going to learn something than going somewhere. That doesn't happen without you getting up your time and efforts and so on and so forth. So thank you.
Thank
Have you
you.
invited the superintendent to this one? Yeah, that sounds pretty cute.
With that, may I have a motion to approve the proposed international trip to Greece in February of 2025? That is Robin, seconded by Julie. All those in favor?
Aye.
And Greg, is it? Wonderful. That's unanimous. Thank you all. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being
Thank
here.
you very much.
Okay. Profile on the high school class of 2024 and post-high school plans, report on high school college acceptances and awards. Ms. Dunn.
I will just add that the English department is taking literature to France in April. That was approved at the end of the year last year, just to remind you. And world language is going to Costa Rica in April. So there are three trips this spring. So I'm going to introduce Kathy Oster to give us the rundown of our acceptances and college report. I think you've seen from the slides we shared with you, want to share more as Ms. McCammon said earlier about our students. This class of 2024 holds a very, very dear place in our hearts for their resilience and strength and in difficult times that they spent in some of their years at DHS. So they are much more to us than their college acceptances, and we want to make sure that we highlight that this evening. There is some data that we should look at, and we will do that first. Okay.
Hello. So as Ellen mentioned, I'm Kathy Oster. I'm the Director of Counseling, and I am excited to be here tonight to share the presentation we have about celebrating the class of 2024. If you would allow me just for a minute to acknowledge the school counseling office staff at the high school, our office, with the school counselors and the administrative assistants are just an incredible group of smart, hardworking, caring people who are dedicated to helping students and families and each other during this exciting but also sometimes stressful process of post-secondary planning. So as you know, there are many, many pathways for students to explore. And also, as you know, there are many, many colleges for students to explore if they choose a college option. So the counselors continuously encourage the students and support the students, reminding them the importance of finding a good fit. When I talk about that, I remember a colleague I worked closely with years ago whose mantra was, during the college application process, we really need to remember that it's a match to be made, not a prize to be won. So as a part of that, our counselors, in addition to helping the seniors navigate the college application process, they spend a lot of time in the fall with the college admissions counselors who visit DHS. We currently have almost 200 colleges that will visit the high school, started yesterday and will run through the beginning of November. This is a wonderful opportunity for the counselors to learn about new trends in admissions and new programs at colleges, but it's also an opportunity that ensures the college admissions counselors have a solid understanding of our impressive school and outstanding student body. We're also grateful for this process because it allows the counselors to connect with the college admissions reps and continue to foster that meaningful relationship. So now to the numbers. The first slide contains information that we include in our school profile. This is a document that accompanies all transcripts in the college application process. Most applications for post-secondary programs or scholarships ask about the percentage of the graduating class who will attend a 2- or 4-year college. So we can see here that approximately 95% of the class of 2024 are or plan to pursue a 2- or 4-year degree, which is an overall statistic that also, as you can, it's an impressive statistic that's remained consistent over the years. The class of 2024 also has several students who have chosen other opportunities like a trade school, the military, employment, travel, and participation in transition programs. But to look at the number of applications this year, our office sent material out for 3,146 applications to almost 350 colleges. But after we removed the withdrawn and incomplete applications, there were 2,475 applications, which averages to about 7 or 8 applications per student. Also worth noting, there were 168 students, which is about half the class, who submitted at least one early decision application. The early decision applications are binding, So the parent, student, and school counselor all need to sign a document saying that if the student is accepted, they will attend that college. And of the 168 students, 108 were accepted. So that's about 1/3 of the class of 2024 committing through an early decision agreement. The colleges with the greatest number of applications, as you can see by the column on the left, which is this past year, and the column on the right, the information does remain pretty consistent from year to year. But the colleges with that were most attended this year, it was a little exciting to see some movement on the list. Indiana University at Bloomington, which houses the Kelley School of Business, moved up to the top of the list, and Loyola University in Maryland, and also University of Chicago were some new schools to the top of the list. And I was very excited to see that on the list of the top 13 schools that students attend, the Connecticut State Community College System was on there with 6 students attending Norwalk Community College. And if you look through your packet, you'll see that the class of 2024 is currently represented at 123 different colleges around the country. So geographically, if you look at the list or the information in the packet, you can see that 32% of the students stayed in New England, with another 20% choosing mid-Atlantic states and another 20% choosing the southern Atlantic states. So about 70% of the class stayed on the East Coast. In your packet, I believe it's chart 7, is also a list of the schools by percentages of acceptance. And I know that you've heard this before, but worth repeating that in many cases, Darien High School's acceptance rates are higher than the national averages. If we take a look at the state schools, the applications remain pretty consistent over the last few years with 126 applications. This number reflects the number of completed applications. And as you saw on a previous slide, we had 9 students enroll at UConn, and all 6 students who applied to Norwalk Community College did enroll. For chart 9 in your packet, it shows a summary of the Ivy League schools. We had 133 students apply to an Ivy, with 17 students accepted and 10 enrolling in 5 different schools. Just to take a quick look at the GPAs and the SAT and ACT scores. This slide also remains pretty consistent over the years with very strong scores. But I just want to point out the note on the bottom. We did give the senior class an exit survey, and one of the questions we wanted to ask was whether or not they submitted their standardized test scores. And so based on the 315 students who completed the survey, 167 reported that they submitted standardized test scores with their application. So just some basic math, that 140 did not. So I'm excited to say that we're using a new process in Naviance to request college applications. And I think it's going to help us collect more information for the class of 2025 regarding standardized test scores and if they're being submitted with applications. And then this perhaps is my favorite slide. So maybe we could call it maybe more than just a number, right? The numbers are important, but this really makes us smile when we think about the different students and the opportunities that they've taken advantage of when they leave Darien High School. So the list shows specific plans or programs that students are proud to be a part of. As you can see, the members of the class of 2024 have chosen to travel, whether it's through a program or independently. They participate in honors programs, which often add more rigor and come with living learning opportunities for housing or special classes. Their first year study abroad programs, for example, like Northeastern, who has the London Scholars, where students are accepted to Northeastern, but they spend their first year in London. There are programs that support and unite first-generation college students. We have students participating not only in intercollegiate athletics, but club sports. And I believe we have a student playing juniors for hockey. We have a number of students who, in a variety of ways, made a commitment to the military, whether it was through an ROTC program, attending a military academy, or enlisting in the Army. We also have several students who will take advantage of transition support programs. These programs really are a continuum of services ranging from life skills and vocational instruction to comprehensive academic programs on college campuses. So there are programs like the SALT Center at University of Arizona, the CAP program at Iona, the STEPS program at Norwalk Community College, the LIFE program at George Mason, and the academic support program at Marist. Also, with Darien's impressive theater, music, and art programs, it's no wonder that students have completed applications and submitted portfolios to programs that require them. We also have a number of students who are taking advantage of unique dual enrollment or accelerated degree programs. And I mentioned before trade school. Typically, when I think of trade school, I think of welding, plumbing, automotive. I think it's okay if I share that this year we have a student who is studying at a premier makeup education institution for aspiring makeup artists. We have a few students who are eager to get into the world of work, and still more who are taking advantage of prestigious programs in leadership, business, management, and capstone programs. And then really, I was just kind of proud that I could make a chart like this. But it's intended majors. For the class of 2024, we had about 250 students report on their intended majors. So you can see that the largest number, I think it was about 70, reported that they're going in undecided, with the next largest group for business and then finance. So Ellen is going to continue to share more about this wonderful group and some of the great things they've done at the high school.
So I know you worked with Annika Mengwell last year with the beautiful logos for our school system. And another one of our seniors, Cam Meyer, has designed the artwork for our vision of the graduate. And so at the end of their senior year, we ask our seniors to reflect on two areas of the vision of the graduate, two competencies. And so we are sharing with you at the same time here some of this beautiful artwork and some of the things that our students shared. Communication was a pivotal part of my academic career because I realized that when you talk out your struggles, you gain clarity on what matters and what the solution should be. Our creativity. My creativity has flourished at Darien High School, teaching me the importance of experimentation and strengthening my problem-solving skills. I see the formation of my identity as a creative process that is constantly evolving and growing. And Darien High School has certainly taken me far in this process. Our curiosity, one of the most important of these tenets. Other subjects don't take away from my focus on science, but instead can augment my core interests to make me a balanced student whose curiosity extends beyond my career path. Whoops. Empathy. To have empathy involves the next step of not only being kind to others, but to also start a journey to be kind to yourself. This is something I will probably always be working on, but recognizing this is the first step. Independence. Each year, I watch the sprawling maple leaves undergo their transition into vibrant shades of red and orange, a parallel of my own change and gain of independence throughout high school. and integrity. As a freshman, I was insecure about who I was, but as a senior, I feel like I've established my own voice and my own identity. From my experience in leading clubs, aiding my friends in school when they need help, and engaging in friendly debates in class and clubs, I've developed my integrity. And so we wanted to just capture, as we end the presentation, some of the joy of our students sharing with one another, their learning, their science, working with the young children in our community, our musical theater, our artwork, some of the beautiful woodworking that gets done in our tech ed department. Leading within the community and with one another in class and in project-based learning. Exploration, all these wonderful trips that you've approved for us and the experiences our students have had. This is the travel and literature class, enjoying a meal together as part of one of their assessments. Caring for one another, their community, the Veterans Day gathering here, some of the volunteer work that they do for our community, Post 53 and our fire departments, and giving to one another in our community. Not clicking. Oh, and then of course the fun. We don't want to forget that. So the joy of at games, dressing up for Halloween. We see the 100-day dinner as the seniors prepare for the last 100 days at DHS. And on the bottom right, they're getting ready to be hypnotized. We have prom and the walk of the graduates, the parade of the graduates, our Fitch graduation. If you look closely at that prom photo, you're going to see someone floating above the crowd. I didn't catch that until after I had sent it. I said, we were letting that student body surf across the prom. So don't say that I'm not a fun principal. And this was one of the beautiful messages at the end of our reflections. I'm infinitely grateful for everything I've learned at DHS and every experience that has bettered me. However, I am now independent enough to support myself and move on to carve my own path in life, not guided by my family, the school, or anyone but myself. So I say goodbye to the most fruitful portion of my life so far, carrying with me everything I have taken away from these 4 years. Thank you, DHS students and staff. I am forever better for having known you all. And this is a beautiful picture at the end of our time together, graduation. When you look at the Vision of the Graduate posters, when you look closely, you'll see this is the photo that lies behind the Vision of the Graduate. So if I'll go back for a second so you can see, we wanted to make sure that we captured our class of 2024 in the back of that poster. So, and all of them, it's our class of 2024 tossing their hats up into the air. Okay, so.
Everything else seemed irrelevant, that doesn't? Thank you.
That's our beautiful class of 2024. And so we may have questions. We're happy to take those.
All right, I'll open it up to the board. There's quite a few things in there. Sarah.
Thank you. I don't have questions about the particular data set. I think it seems like the class of 2024 is off to a great start and doing great things. I'm just curious about Kathy, and I don't want to know if I want to put you on the spot here or not, but as you finish your first year and entering your second year, what do you think we could do better? Is there anything you want to change? Is there anything you want to adjust? Like, how do you think we could better serve our kids in this, post-secondary world?
Well, I mean, it sounds a little canned or cliche, but really, they do a fabulous job. I feel so grateful for the counselors in the school counseling department specifically. And I know there's so much support in the community from parents. The teachers are wonderful people. So I think that one of the things Ellen and I spoke a little bit about is tracking our alumni. I know that's a question that's come up a number of times. And well, I guess one of the things I would like to use Naviance better than it's been used in the past. And in that, there's an alumni tracker feature That might cost money, but we have to, we're going to look into that a little bit. I was talking with Dr. Caitlin Stanton today about how, and Leslie LaJoy, about how we could use that information to see, you know, we send the students off to wonderful institutions, but how well do they do after, you know, maybe a year after, 4 years after, you know, and ensure that they are graduating. And then just the continued mental health support, the emotional support. I think that that's so important. I worked in a community for a long time where that was a big focus. I think it's probably it should be a big focus everywhere. But that's clearly, Ellen is wonderful and just caring and kind. And, you know, I had an opportunity to welcome some of the freshmen. And because our new school counselor started after the freshman orientation, and I told them, I'm like, you met Mrs. Dunn. She truly loves you. Like, she believes in this Blue Wave family. And so embrace that community feel. It's a wonderful place.
Thank you.
I would just add, we had a group of alumni come and speak to the teachers, something that we like to do every year, not every year, every few years. And it's just fascinating to hear from them about how well they feel prepared. And also the message that they sent to our teachers, it was with our teachers to give them feedback on what college has been like for them. It really was just a beautiful message of, they wanted to make sure that we shared with students that there were a lot of colleges, a lot of settings, a lot of pathways they could have followed, and they would have been happy in any of those things. And they didn't really know that then. And so the more we can continue this message that there are many different ways, this is not a race to some point. You know, these are experiences in life, and all of those experiences enrich us. And I was saying that to Brenna earlier this morning. It's just a little adventure to search out your next steps. But and it's very hard. We understand. We're moms. We went through this, and so it is very hard to feel like you can't exactly control a situation with the college process and the next steps beyond high school. But supporting one another in that and trying to take down the temperature would probably be the message we would continue to send. So.
Thank you. John.
So when I look at the breadth and the quality of institutions at this class, but if you go back and compare year after year this presentation, I thank you for all the data. It's truly impressive, and it helps the community understand that we're doing our job, educating our kids, teaching them to learn how to learn, if you will, and progress in their secondary education. So I thank you for that. This should give the community trust that their resources are being employed they're getting a bang for their buck, if you will. A great return on their investment. But it's also that list that you showed, you know, beyond colleges and the specialties that they're pursuing, or the military academies, or transition programs and that sort of thing. So thanks for pointing that out. I guess on the feedback loop side, I mean, clearly one institution in my family jumped out, Clemson being top, but not to pick on Clemson, but Penn State. There were a lot of institutions where huge number of acceptances, but then those students that ended up going were a very small percentage of the acceptances. So the question is, are you able to provide feedback to these institutions that maybe their hit rate is off, or, you know, because they're generously giving acceptances, which are, you know, big currency, but we're not giving them much return in terms of students going. And I picked on Penn State, Clemson. There's a few others in there that just jump out at us.
I mean, I believe that the colleges know that, and with the implementation of the Common App, that kind of went wild.
Okay.
And so they understand how many, I mean, I think they call it their yield. They know how many students they need to accept in order to yield the freshman class number that they want. So I think that they're very familiar with the metrics
Or-
around acceptances.
Or maybe asked another way, are we able to guide them and give them guidance, like in future years, like just so we don't lose certain institutions with such a low yield,
Oh,
if
do
you
you mean
will?
the students? I thought you.
Well, no, I meant on the university side or the college side, but just so we don't lose them, if you will, with such a low yield.
We can, what I had mentioned about the counselors sitting with the college admissions counselors who come to our school, we have a spreadsheet, and every year we pick a question or two that we want to make sure that all of the counselors ask all the admissions counselors. So we can ask them, or perhaps maybe not formalize it as much, but with the representatives that have been coming to our building for a long time, ask them if they're offended. But I do think that it's the nature of the business these days.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Kathy, about the college summary slide versus this wonderful slide, which has all the different options. So according to this, we have 315 students who applied and 331 total, so about 16 students. Can you help me understand where those 16 students, are they all represented here? Are they in, which of these categories would capture those 16?
I believe there's 4 that are under the employment. And I mentioned the one at trade.
Yeah.
We have, I have to pull up the slide. I don't remember that.
Mentioned an athlete.
Travel.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, a student who is pursuing juniors hockey.
Yeah.
I don't know how in depth I can go with like individual students.
Yeah, I know you have to be careful.
We do have one student who enlisted. I think he was announced at graduation. We have another student who is either enlisting or choosing employment for right now.
Okay.
So I don't know how many I'm up to. So we have 4 employment, 1 military, 1 trade, 1 hockey,
9. I have about
1
9.
travel.
Approximately how many are in transition? Can we answer that, Charlie?
Well, the transition programs are
I can speak to that.
included. Yeah, and they're included. I mean, the one I mentioned
It's like
about
some of them are colleges. Yeah,
University of
right.
Arizona, right? The George Mason, the NCC steps. There's there's 2 students taking advantage of steps.
Yeah.
There's a student at George Mason.
Great.
And then some of the other students, it's tricky when students are a part of the class but stay past graduation as to where they
get counted.
where their numbers fall.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that adds some color. I'll just use the word several, not the number, not to identify students.
Okay.
But there are several students who are also in neighborhood programs as well.
Yes.
Public programs.
Okay. Okay. That gets me in the vicinity of 16.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay. Thank you both for the
Kathy,
presentation.
thank you, Mrs. Johnson.
Report on ESY program 2024, Shirley, Scott, and Laura.
And good evening. It's difficult to imagine that children delight in extended school year programs. And yet we're here this evening to share with you that is true. They really do. And some of the ways that we see that is in the 2024 ESY programs. We provide opportunities for students to experience joy, foster new friendships, foster new relationships with teachers, special education related service providers, and paraeducators. And we'd like to thank the educators, administrators, and students and families who together successfully realized an exemplary program this summer. Thanks for all their work, and also for the transportation department. Don't want to go unnoticed. Thanks for rolling out our own fleet to Danny Powers and the staff that we have our own fleet right now. And if we may also take a moment just to thank the board and share with you how the administrative restructuring really supported our ESY programs this summer. The ESY continued under the supervision of Laura Straighton for our ELP Earliest Learning Programs. And Laura did share with us how remaining at Oxbridge the first time this summer really did just removed the necessity to move to Tokenique. There were less transitions for children, less transition for staff, and it really did realize a seamless ESY program. Not to mention a beautiful setting at Oxbridge and the new programs with playgrounds and all the other aspects of early learning opportunities. Having Dr. Scott McCarthy in his new position as K through 12 program director allowed Scott to onboard the newly appointed program directors. That would be Sarah O'Malley from Middlesex and Janine Newell at the high school, and really onboard them and model for them their new roles and responsibilities in moving forward in the ESY program. They were all located at DHS. And lastly, and most importantly as well, are elementary APs. Adding on, thanks to the board, those 10 days of extra time for them to really prepare and to now implement the success of their scheduling and program for all of our K through 5 students is an opportunity that also will support and I think improve many of the practices we have in ESY. So thank you to the board again for that as well. And this evening, I'll introduce and start with Scott McCarthy, Program Director, K through 12 Special Education Director. I have to get this right, Scott, to really share with you again some of the opportunities this summer, what the program looked like. You've had a chance to review the presentation as well, and any questions that we, Laura, Scott, and myself can answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. And as Shirley stated, the timing of the restructure afforded me the opportunity to be a site supervisor for the Darien High School site. And I can attest that there's no better place to start a new position than at ESY at DHS, because our incredible staff devote their summers to making meaningful summers for our most needy students. So it's a really wonderful place. And I look forward to sharing with you more about that tonight. So for those of you who are new to the board or new to ESY, Student School Year is a program for students with IEPs. It's a required part of our continuum of services for students. Our ESY program generally runs 5 weeks through the summer. However, there are some extenuating circumstances where students who have the most comprehensive profiles receive additional services outside of those 5 weeks. During those 5 weeks, it is a requirement that students must be able to have access to specialized instruction, related services, and inclusion opportunities. Eligibility for ESY program is considered on multiple factors. The team's PPTs are required to consider multiple factors when they determine this eligibility, typically at the annual review. We consider factors such as non-regression, the nature and severity of a student's disability, the likelihood that a student will lose critical skills or fail to recover those skills in an adequate amount of time, including other factors in special circumstances. Our ESY program timeline actually begins quite a bit before this graphic, where we plan and develop schedules with families through the winter and the spring. But our actual ESY program begins on June 21st with a full day of orientation work. Our teachers, our paraeducators, and our related service providers get together to review IEPs, learn about the new students and caseloads, and prepare for their students to arrive the next day, which this year began on June 24th. Each year we provide a parent and a staff survey, which we sent out on July 24th. And our general program ends on July 26th. Student eligibility recommendations and actual attendance from the 23 to 24 school year for our K-12 program were fairly consistent, as you can see in this graph. ELP program recommendations and attendance were up about 10 students from 23 to 24. Our staffing this year similarly remained fairly consistent from year over year from 23 to 24. There are a few fewer staff members. However, our classes, programs, and services were fully staffed without any vacancies. This graphic provides you a breakdown of our ESY staffing. This year we had 86 amazing paraprofessionals, 39 special education teachers, 12 speech and language pathologists, 6 school psychologists and behaviorists, 5 OTs, and 1 PT. And this year, we'd like to provide you a snapshot of our ESY finances. So the approved budget for the 24-25 school year was $1,306,533. To date, we have our actuals are $895,792. The actuals include in-district ESY staffing, PPT meetings, evaluation processes, the DSS allocation of any PPT meeting, who recommended a DSS class for a student, and it's exclusive of the orientation day that will happen next June and the 6 days of ESY that will happen in June of 2025, which is why we're below that approved budget number. In terms of transportation, the approved budget was $230,000 and our actual to date is $187,000. This includes out-of-district transportation costs and it excludes personnel costs, the portions of the personnel costs for the suburban drivers who are transporting students. So as you know from our timeline, we provided a survey to families and to staff. We received 51 responses from our family survey, which gives us really critical feedback about our efforts to realize our goals from last year. So we wanted to provide you some of those highlights that really show how amazing our staff supported students and families this year. We see that in response to the question, I received information about my child's individual ESY program in a timely manner. 94% of parents agreed. ESY program staff were responsive to my questions or requests for information. 94% of response agreed. I received timely and accurate information about my child's transportation schedule. 89% of respondents agreed. And district transportation picked up and dropped off my child at consistent times. 88% of respondents agreed. We also provided an option for parents to provide us any narrative feedback in the survey, and I wanted to highlight a few of the amazing things that our families said about our staff. So I'll give you a moment to read through those. As I said, at the same time we send out a staff survey, to our staff survey, we received 50 responses. We know how important establishing a positive school climate is in ESY because staff recruitment is so important to us in the summer programming. So we are excited to report that our staff felt positive about their experiences in working in the ESY program. To the question, information was communicated clearly and effectively by site administrators. 92% of staff agreed. You received your ESY schedule in a timely manner. 94% agreed. Transportation information was communicated clearly and effectively by the administration. 90% agreed. When students exhibited challenging behaviors, staff and administration were responsive to the concerns raised. 96% agreed. And when we asked them to tell us their top 3 feelings at work during ESY 2024, the feelings were happy, confident, and calm. We have some excerpts from narratives that our staff provided, and I'll give you another minute to look through those. I know we're not focusing on great this is done, but the program culture and climate or an A+ is certainly a tribute to the staff. This year, we also prioritized transition programming during the ESY program. We took a number of community trips. Popular ones included, as you can imagine, Chick-fil-A, but other visits including downtown safety trips to work on navigating the community safely, bowling for team building, Silverman's Farms for a number of different opportunities, including learning about working at the farm. The diner, the farmer's market, Reynolds Farm, Whole Foods, and Bakersfield. And last year, we provided to you some program goals for our 2024 ESY, which included providing ESY progress reports through the CT SEDS mechanism, and that was an accomplishment of this year. We also had a goal to maintain our site locations at DHS and Oxbridge, which, as you heard from Shirley earlier, was an accomplishment of this year and very positively received by families and by staff. And we were able to be fully staffed. So we were able to get out early, recruit staff. We were able to recruit teachers from other neighboring districts when we needed to make sure that our students had all of the services and staff members they needed. In thinking about our 2025 initiatives, we want to continue to partner with transportation to provide information about transportation arrangements as early as possible to families. We're looking to standardize our ESY schedules so that families who have students across multiple schools have schedules that are aligned and provide consistent information and access. And we also want to streamline our student attendance procedure. The student attendance procedure during the school year uses Aspen, but with a number of individualized schedules that would be extremely confident. So our attendance procedure currently is just somewhat cumbersome for staff, and we'd like to streamline that for them. So in closing, I'd also like to thank Danny and our transportation drivers who were unbelievable this year. They were responsive. They ensured our students arrived to school safely. They ensured our students arrived to their community site safely. I don't know that people realize how complicated it is to set up individual transportation schedules that pick up and drop off at home for this many students with complex profiles. But they did an amazing job, and we can't say thank you enough. And also to our paraprofessionals. So we have a number of paraprofessionals who do amazing work over the summer. If you ever have a chance to drive by DHS at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're concentrated at 7:30. They are waiting outside, ready to greet students with smiles and make the summer an amazing day. With that, if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll open it to more questions. Robin.
I had a question on the slide that was on page 81 about student enrollment, just that there's a large difference between the recommended versus actual attendance for the K through 12 students. What are the reasons generally for that? And does that impact the goals for the PPT programs or anything like that?
Sure. So that's somewhat of a consistent trend over time. Oftentimes that's related to students or family vacations or families selecting other opportunities for camps. So that's a fairly consistent thing that happens over the years with our program.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I think also some of our students who have less needs, maybe it might just be a half an hour a week or something, and it's hard for families to prioritize something like that. So that leads to picking other things like camps.
Yeah, we do hear, to your point, Jill, that sometimes decisions about camps have to be made far before a PPT can make a recommendation. And so sometimes families are making those decisions and we work with them as best we can.
Thank you. Julie.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It sounds like it was a very successful summer. And I loved the comments from parents and staff in the survey results. Positive comments about communication is wonderful. And I know transportation's been tricky, and I know you spoke to it a little bit at the end of your presentation, but could you just give us a little bit of a reminder of a little more on the complexities of getting that information out to parents, why the ramping up and getting organized at the beginning tends to be so problematic or challenging, and what you all are planning to look at this year in advance of next summer to try to continue to smooth that out?
Sure, yeah. So one of the unique challenges of ESY transportation is that ESY itself is not a requirement for families, and transportation isn't a requirement. So a student may be eligible for ESY and eligible for transportation, but may take one and not the other, may take both, may take neither. And getting accurate information back can be challenging. And so then sometimes a bus or Suburban might arrive to one house, and as we wait to find out what's happening, then that creates a domino effect. And so those first few days are often us trying to work out those kinks. We took efforts this year to try to actually have a face-to-face call with every single family to find out on Monday, this is the time and this is, the process. There are times though where those things can just be challenging. Students are adjusting to a new routine, sometimes a new pickup time, a new driver. Sometimes it's challenging to get those things done in the times that are needed. And so those first few days are always us working through hiccups. But the improvement this year, the improvement each year has been incredible. So we're really grateful.
Katie. Thank you. I have two questions. The first is kind of piggybacking off of what Julie had asked. It's great to see the really high and positive survey responses, but I'm curious what critical feedback you received and what improvements you might be looking for next year. I noticed that on one of the slides, it had said that there were 2025 initiatives. So I wasn't sure whether those were based on things that you had learned this summer or whether they were planned ahead of time, but just needed to be implemented at a future date.
Sure. Good question. The 2025 initiatives were driven by the survey result feedback that wasn't as high or as positive. So we used that feedback to generate those initiatives, which were primarily related to either schedules not being clear, consistent, or early enough, or transportation schedules not being clear, consistent, or early enough.
Thank you. And then my second question was about the transition programming. The slide that you had posted and the destinations read a bit to me like field trips. And I was curious about how you prioritize more skill building and training, specifically things that might lead to job experience and translatable skills.
Sure. So each community trip has a focus on it. So if we're going downtown to work on safety, obviously we're going downtown to work on safety. If we're going to the farmers market, some students, like you can see in it's working anymore.
Yes, I'm doing.
So you can see here in the bottom left, the student is using their assistive technology device to order at the farmer's market to actually generalize a skill into a community setting. The students at Reynolds Farms are actually working on job skills at the farm, following directions, and working at a job site where they're going to be interacting with people who may not know them. So each site has a purpose. If it's a purpose that might be more social, like going to a restaurant, there's still the purpose of ordering off the menu. Do you have enough money? All of those skills are embedded and have a unique focus that our teachers are working on as they prepare for that trip.
I think to that point, Scott, you have in your 2025 initiatives, I know this is the second or third year of this iteration of transition, but perhaps we could take a look. We're looking at transition overall. I think it might be helpful to look at it also in the context of ESY and how those two things. So I'd love to see it identified as an initiative. And I'd love when you come back to us for you to talk more explicitly about that specifically, that you're looking at different skills and how it kind of ties to the individual development of kids. Because I appreciate just reading a list. You can't see the richness of what's actually happening.
Sure. Of course.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you, Dr.
you.
McCarthy. Thank you very much.
All right. With that, I'll move on to the review of the FOIA log. March.
I don't know if anyone has any questions. You can see some of the issues that came before the board are then subject to freedom of information requests. And then every year we get a certain number of business requests. I think they want information to try to make more competitive bids. It's like that.
I have a question. John?
There's one request with 57,000 emails. And then later it says limited in scope on April 4th, 2024. Can you just talk about that just
So we
briefly?
limited it to 57,000 emails. I've asked him again to limit it. The request was first for all of the FOIA production, so we got that. But then he wanted every communication between anyone in the district and any of the news media sources, and it's 57,000 because they email us all the time. People email back and forth. So he's reviewing what I gave him and he's considering whether he'll limit it.
How long did it take you to grab 57,000
Well,
emails?
that's just a search that
Okay.
Jeff Adams
Yeah,
does.
okay.
But the return was 57, and I've already given him probably 10,000, 15,000.
Okay. I just, and then in another FOIA, you state a person's name and it says FOIA buddy.
There's a software program where they can submit a FOIA request and they can sort of hide their name. So we talked to our attorney about not answering, and she said that all the districts in Connecticut had gotten the same thing and that we should do it, but that we didn't have to do it quickly, but Rich did it quickly.
Okay. Thank you.
Katie?
Marge, there's one entry that's listed, categorized as abandoned. Can you give a little color on what triggers that?
Right, so the CEA, after an incident that happened in another district, was looking for all of the outsourcing that districts were doing that they considered their bargaining unit. I think that that's an open question, whether all of the outsourcing is really their bargaining unit work, because if it requires special skills. We gave them some information and then we're told that they had enough, so we didn't have to complete the request.
So the abandoned means that they withdrew it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They didn't really withdraw it, but they said that's enough, I guess.
Any other questions? Mark, sometimes we receive requests from people who we can't verify who they are. Do we go through any sort of process? Or I'm saying we can't verify who they are, but there's names on here I've never seen before.
No, as long as they have valid email address. We did have concerns about somebody, and luckily the file was large enough that we could put it on a flash drive and ask them to come in, because we
Okay.
suspected that the person wasn't being honest about who it really was, but.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Further discussion and possible action on board master agenda for August 24th through February 25th. Another comment before we dive into the particulars that I have for the board is in most cases where we have sort of standing committee meetings like policy or finance, Alan indicates on here that there will be a follow-up discussion of the finances or of there's policy to be reviewed. But in the case of a curriculum or communications, for example, where we may or may not put something forward, Alan hasn't presumed that it should be pushed forward, and so it doesn't show up on the master agenda. It's actually my inclination to ask that we put it on the master agenda and just move it if it's not ready, so that we as board members can follow what is intended to come up from the subcommittees. But I wanted to throw that question out to the board also. Julie?
Thank you. Can you just clarify that a little further? Do you mean specific outputs? Or
Yes,
do you
so
mean
for
update
example-
from?
No, I mean, so for example, you'll have a communications plan presented in October. It may or may not be ready for the board at that subsequent meeting, but I think it would be nice to indicate that there's a communications plan that the board can take a look at and that it's planned for that meeting in October, even if we have to punt it to November because you all need to do another iteration.
Thank you.
I like that.
Okay. How do other board members feel? Yes?
I'm fine with that, as long as it's puntable and we can,
Okay.
move things around, that's fine.
I think it gives a goal. I mean,
Yeah.
at least that
Okay.
makes it more transparent.
Okay. Okay. Katie, you have an opinion? Good. Okay. All right.
So just to be clear, what the charge is to go through the curriculum committee, the different committees and look ahead as to where it lines up for certain presentations?
Yes, please. Should follow up. Should be bumped up to the board. Okay. Other things to note, the September 24th needs to show the goal 1 of the strat plan. And at our last agenda meeting, Sarah, John and I talked with Alan about the possibility, Marge, of a staff update. We asked you a lot of questions in our last meeting, just having a more formal presentation kind of in the similar nature, sort of how many staff came in, went out. If that's something that could be prepared for the 24th, I propose for the board, we might be interested in seeing, not just hearing from Marge ad hoc, but seeing just a summary for the year.
I won't be here on the 24th.
Okay.
But I can prepare something that you can.
Okay.
She should
Are
be
you
here.
here on the 8th? Great. Okay. So we can put that on the 8th. Or whenever Alan would take. Okay. Anything else?
I just moved, I'm sorry, I just moved from October 22nd, the discussion of new courses from the high school to November 12th, because that's just in line with how things operate with the curriculum council and so on at the high school.
Okay. Katie?
I wanted to ask about when we might have some scheduling updates regarding the work that was discussed at length during the budget season, the work that was done over the summer with a consultant, and kind of really just more details on how things are actually working out. I was not present at the last meeting, but I believe that Julie had maybe asked about that potentially being in October as well.
Asked for that for October 22nd. Yep. Alongside the class size reports.
Yeah, that we had said that we would include it with the class size report. We can actually put those words in, but that's what we sort of decided.
Okay, so I guess then I just want to make sure that that specifically will cover not just class sizes at middle school, but how the specials are working out, how the drop-offs and pickup supervision, the playground, really just the scope of the changes that were implemented.
Yeah. Well, we can look at it as just a separate schedule. Like if you're more comfortable looking at just a separate schedule and topic, that's fine. We can do that.
Yeah, I think just in general, when there is a big change and when there is significant funds that are used to bring in a consultant, it makes sense for us to review how things might be different from what their potential was in discussion versus their reality as they played out.
That's fine. We can do that. Okay. If you're comfortable with just calling it
Scheduling.
that's fine.
Yep.
For the 22nd, you'll do that alongside it?
Yes. Good.
Great. Yep. Robin?
I had one comment on the November 26th agenda. We're starting off with an update on budget initiatives and potential efficiencies, and then later there's further discussion of potential action on budget initiatives, and then special education update. And the request that I would make is potentially moving the special education update prior to the further discussion and possible action on budget initiatives, just because it's a large program and that will be our update. And so in order to actually discuss and potentially act on budget initiatives, I think that would be really helpful. So we have full information on how all these pieces and moving parts are working together.
And you're just talking about the order of the
Just the
agenda
order
on
of
the
the
agenda,
agenda.
not the date.
Exactly. No, just the order of the agenda.
That's good. That's good.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Katie?
Of that, I would say that I think that in the past couple of years, we have discussed trying to move the special education update up earlier as well, because by the time it's the end of November, the budget's really moving along quite quickly. And I think especially in light of, the deficits that we had in this past year, it does make sense to have a picture earlier.
I think we talked about it last week,
We did discuss that one last time, and that was difficult for special education to get ready for that time period.
The other thing is on the December 7th tour of the schools, should we just go ahead and indicate that it's also the HHR buildings, simply because our tour of the schools is usually our capital plan.
Yeah, we've actually always, if schools were in a renovation stage, we've actually gone inside them, but that's fine. We'll just add for clarification.
And then I know the literacy pilot update. I know that when you go through and take a look at the curriculum meetings, it would naturally show up here. But I was just curious of the approximate time frame for that. Do we know, Amy?
It will be December.
Okay.
Well, of course, we're reviewing this every month with the curriculum committee, and I'm sure there will be a share out with the full board when Sarah shares out the curriculum committee report. But in one of the December meetings, that would be when we would be discussing where the steering committee has landed.
Okay, probably the 10th.
I'm looking at it now, probably the 10th.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, this is on here for action, but given that we've asked for a number of changes, we can either approve it as amended or we can take another look. We'll take one last look. All right. Unless anybody disagrees. All right, further discussion and possible action on district strategic plan board goals for 24-25. Dr. Adley.
So for both the, do you want me to do these separate, Madam Chair, or can I talk about them just both globally? Or do you?
I think you can talk about them.
Okay.
Well, let's do board first. And then...
Okay. So we just highlighted any changes that were either made prior to the last meeting and presented at the last meeting, but not highlighted, because that was a request, or any other revisions that were made. And there really weren't any other revisions, to the best of my recollection, other than what I have highlighted.
Any questions about the updates to the 5 board goals?
I do.
Yes.
So apologies. Last meeting, I was on Zoom with COVID and had COVID brain. Can you talk to, and maybe I missed this, but can you talk to a little bit about what that, what the dashboard actually means and where that will be? Is that a public document? Is that I don't necessarily.
We're going to talk about that next time, right, Alan?
Yeah, but the dashboard, I can just, the dashboard, I can just sort of talk to, when we go to goal 1, which we're not going to talk in depth about.
Yeah.
Whatever data metric we're talking about, there will be an opportunity to track it, for want of a better word, track that and also show it. We did discuss that there would no problem with that being public on our website or otherwise. But that's kind of what we mean by it, or what the understanding of the discussion was.
Okay. But we're going to have a chance to weigh in on what data is appropriate and.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Any other comments on the board goals? Katie?
Just say at a high level, while I was not present for the last meeting either, I did watch the recording, and I do think that as a board, we need to be thoughtful about asking for detailed data and what it may and may not show. I think that we need to recognize the limitations of graphs and charts on accurately representing our students and their capabilities, our teachers and their wisdom. Watching that playback, it was a bit hard to follow, not being in person. There were a lot of abstract language being used and some things. So I think that we need to communicate clearly to be understood. We need to use real language and not just buzzwords and abbreviations and things that have yet to be developed. And I think that we certainly, I hope, are not looking to hire a full-time statistician to be running models on all of our students. Metrics are important, but they are one piece. And I worry a bit about us going too far down into siloing, test scores and standardized reportable things.
I think the point you're making is why we've actually isolated the entire, that our intent is to focus on goal one of the of the district strat plan for our look at metrics and how we use them. And we've isolated that goal specifically for the next meeting. So we can talk about, as he said in the beginning, not only what we use, but how we use it. Because, it is possible, of course, we know, to use data inappropriately. And that's not the goal. So we will have an extensive conversation next meeting about that. Julie.
Small question, I think. I'm just curious. I noticed on the agenda, and I've heard it said a couple times that we've referred to this as our strategic plan. These are our board goals that support the strategic plan, correct? This
Part, yes, these first 5.
Okay.
These ones that we're about to go through next.
Right.
Those are the strat plan. So there are 2 components. There's the board goals and there's the strat plan. Right now, if I keep saying strat plan, that's my fault. These are the board goals.
Like I said, I thought it was a small question. I just wanted to confirm that I didn't miss something. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
One question. On here also on goal 3, consider any new revenue generating opportunities. Will the administration be proposing new revenue opportunities to the board, or is this something, because it's not necessarily on the master agenda and it applies to the upcoming budget. So I'm just wondering what that process is, or if we would be reacting to a recommendation, or how that would work.
The answer to that would be potentially yes, but it shouldn't come out of thin air. I mean, it could be some of the stuff that we've discussed and revisited or otherwise.
Okay.
But,
So is that embedded in the efficiencies and initiatives discussion?
Yes.
It would qualify perhaps as an initiative?
Yeah.
Okay. Good question. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Now we move on to the strat plan piece.
So we're not discussing goal 1, but just as a way of an update, the administration has met and has focused on some things that we think that would be appropriate to look at. I just got a little first run of a beta dashboard this evening, just before walking in here. So I'll be happy to review those in between now and the next meeting, and be able to come back with a proposal about that. I will say, if you don't mind me comment on Mrs. Lublin's comments around this just in general, it is absolutely critically important that we are sensitive to how we use this data. We have young people who lined up here in the last 2 years. We have young people who only feel valued by adults based on their performance or achievement. So we just have to be cautious about the subliminal message or otherwise, if it's not widgets that we're working with. I'm all for accountability and performance and so on, but actually, Madam Chair, I appreciate your lead-off comments about this, because I sort of alluded to this. So I just think we just have to be cautious about it as well for that side. I don't mind looking at the scoreboard every now and again, because I think you have to do that. But anyway, I think both points are well taken, and I appreciate that. So this one's not going to be looked at until 1 or 2 board members meet with 1 or 2 members of the administration to look at what that is, and then bring it back to the board here.
Okay.
Okay. But we're making good. We have a proposal, fleshed out proposal that hopefully will help guide that discussion pretty quickly.
Yes.
I think it would be incredibly helpful when we have that conversation on September 24th to start it at the beginning.
Yes.
I think we've talked about this in a couple permutations, and I don't think everyone's on the same page. So I'd like to start from what is this intent? How do we intend to use it? Would be really useful. Thank you.
Yes. Good point. Thank you. Okay, goal 2.
Well, we have just made the changes as they're all highlighted. Any changes that we have highlighted here, you can see them. So we've gone through this. We reordered the timeline, as year 4 came before year 5 and that type of stuff, and highlighted the things that were again brought to the last board meeting but not highlighted, and then anything else that we had to suggest from the last meeting. So it's all highlighted there, and we think this is relatively in good shape based on the feedback that. If you want to go through them individually, we can.
On goal area 2. I'm curious about the highlighted, just the categorizing. Under action, there's implement pre-K through 8 personal device, but then under evidence, it's provide a recommendation for 9 through 12. So maybe I don't understand how this is laid out. It seems to me that the 9 through 12 should be a future action step as opposed to evidence of the PK to 8.
Personally, so just to finish of it, it's a wee bit of semantics. If you look at the action there in that first one, it talks about the high school level sort of investigate best practices for the high school basically, and then assess, provide an update about high school.
So even though it's listed in evidence, that's still a to come. Like it's not a completion. It's what will provide the evidence that happened. Is that the way it's laid out, that the evidence is not necessarily like a completed list?
Well, you're just saying that it's a recommendation and it's not an implementation. Is that what you're sort of saying? Is that what you're alluding to, or?
I think you could say implement a PK through 8 personal device guidelines, investigate best practices for use at the high school level. So then your evidence is tied to that second phrase. I think you're missing any, other than the survey, you're missing anything PK through 8 that assesses the efficacy there.
Well, I think what I'm really asking is how to read this to know what has been done and what needs to work.
So the pre-K to 8 is in place. It will be evaluated.
Right.
And the high school has just started those initial discussions, but a recommendation here will come before the board with an implementation. And this is just sort of like hot off the press, sort of like looking at the sort of timeline. Any new implementation, honestly, I would look at that second semester start.
But I think if I could jump in, I think what Katie's asking is evidence listing, this is what has happened. Here is the evidence that we did it. But I think actually evidence is saying this will be the work output when the action steps are followed. So the evidence we don't have the evidence yet in our hot little hands. It's what we will eventually have. And as we tick through it, I guess we'll have to find some way to demarcate what now has been completed, right? And what is still to be evidenced.
I think we're on the same page though. Sort of.
It's more of a milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah, ongoing.
Goal 3.
I don't believe we had any changes in goal 3.
Okay, goal 4.
Goal 4 was just at the bottom of the page. I think that one's actually from Katie from a prior meeting, I think.
Okay. Any questions about goal 4? Goal 5?
Goal 5 is as is.
Any questions? Goal 6?
Goal 6 was including the middle school, Darien High School, and Tokenique.
Okay. Any questions?
And the new information system.
Is 7? Yeah.
That was the back end of technology data support system.
Yes. Thank you for adding
And
that.
then I didn't highlight the whole glossary, but I highlighted the glossary.
Questions about 6 or 7? Oh, okay. Okay, so we have on here, if the board wishes, a motion to approve, but it would be just the Board of Education goals and the strategic plan goals 2 through 7. So I'll put the motion out there. There's a second we can talk about. May I have a motion to approve the Board of Education goals and strategic plan goals 2 through 7 for 24-25? Sarah moves. John seconds. All those in favor? Oh, discussion is fine. Yes, go ahead, John. Are you discussing?
Just, sorry, why would we not take these all together?
We can. We're hoping to, you kind of sign off on these and move forward. Some of this stuff is already going forward, despite the fact that we haven't signed off on it yet, but we can wait another meeting if that's the wish of the board.
Second.
I just think it's to get it moved, to your point, like get it crossed off, done, and we can focus on goal 1 next week.
John?
So it was a second.
Pardon?
We had a second, motion second, discussion.
Yes. So now, are we ready to vote? Right, all those,
I'm gonna vote no, not because I like it, just to be right.
I can't hear you, Dave. Sorry, can you try that again?
I agree, but
To punt.
I agree.
Oh, you agreed to punt the entire strat plan
just till next week.
till next meeting?
Correct.
Okay,
All right, so we should vote.
Yep.
okay. All those in favor?
Of what?
Of 2 through 7.
The motion to approve the Board of Education goals and strategic plans
2 through
goals
7.
2 through 7 for 24-25. If it fails, we just vote next meeting. It's not a big deal. All those in favor, Jill, John, Robin, Sarah. All those opposed? Julie, Katie, Dave.
Where's Greg?
Greg's not on it. Motion passes.
Greg is not on.
No, he's
Do you
not.
know when he left?
8:20.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. It can always be amended if need be. Personnel report, March Sion.
So this last large one represents the bulk of our hiring. We still have 2 OTs and SLP, but we have candidates that we're interviewing as we speak. And we have a couple of para positions to fill, but those were late resignations. We had a resignation that came in, I think, last week. So.
Okay. All right. Any questions about that? Okay.
Nice work.
Yes, thank you. All right, follow-up action items. We had a couple of things from last meeting, most of which has been completed. In terms of what's left, finance is still looking at guidance and forecasting at their next meeting. And all committee heads are to look at their meeting schedule from some previous meetings. Katie, you're working on, you sent an email today, you're working on the orientation and the board handbook. And then we had asked for just a quick high level surely look at transition from a financial perspective, if that could come sooner than later. Going in terms of the action items from this meeting, the only thing I have is the memo regarding the reading pilot to the entire board. I didn't have any other action items. Did anyone else?
Goal 1.
Well, that's on the, yes. And then going forward, Cass has created a format for us. We'll populate it at the end of every meeting. It'll be packaged in the board package so that we can all keep track of the comings and goings of these action items so that we all are on the same page about what we've agreed to and who's assigned to it and where it is in process. So that'll show up in your board packet starting next time. Okay. Any other action item discussion? All right. Public comment.
Good evening. If anybody in person would like to participate in public comment, please approach the podium and wait for the chair to recognize you. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have up to 3 minutes to comment. Please note the time with the chair. If anyone online would like to participate, please use the raised hand icon. We have no raised hands at this time.
Okay, thank you all for your time this evening. May I please have a motion to adjourn? That is Julie, seconded by